Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is still Wednesday when I'm recording this. It might actually be Thursday by the time it gets online. But that does mean it's time for a new viewer track review video. And today we're going to start off with Wodo W0D0 Lawless Nights. Definitely just tried to put that into the exploit window and not into the Edison window. Yeah. But here we go. I'm going to hear how it sounds. gets lower and lower and lower. It's still there. It's progressing. And now it's gone. Kind of messed up the ending there. Sorry about that. I mute myself while I'm playing these back so you didn't hear me go, ah! When I accidentally hit and it stopped. I was like, no, I meant to hit this thing and I hit that thing. It was a bad time. Anyway, this is pretty neat. I kind of liked the tone of this kick-based relationship, which you might think might be the precise opposite thing I would say about this, just give it a glance, that like the nature of the bass is very volatile. It's not very clean. But here's the thing, the track itself isn't extraordinarily loud or bright, which means that the power consideration is very low. So a lot of the danger that is solved when you make a separate sub underneath a bunch of stuff is not really even here. So it's not as though the track necessarily needed to do that. I was interested though, if you look at the low end coming in on the main bit. You see how there's this kind of like little bump that kind of shows up pretty regularly, because this is the kick, and then this is presumably some like part of the sub. I'm not really sure. It could be one of the sounds. It could be one of the main like do 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 do, but or something that has something a lot of low end, but it has a lot of low end, whatever it is. And normally when I look at the low end, what I consider to be the clean low end that you hear on things that are super loud, it's usually very smooth transient on the sub or whatever the kick is, and then just a shelf. And like this is still kind of that. Like the kick experience is definitely visibly larger than the bass experience, and that's keeping it. It's also well true in the visual. We can see the kick is quite well separated from everything, so that means it's satisfying like that dynamic responsibility. But exactly where this little nub is interesting, because I think we can feel it. And I think it's adding to like this texture of the track. Isn't that fun? And it comes to a head later when these things show up, which is this just spray cans? Is that just the spray sound effect from Source Engine? Kind of feels like it. But what's fun is that these little nubs show up here too, and you can see them in the high frequencies. You can see them get represented there, and you can feel them. You can feel this high frequency shelf show up, and then you can feel that bump roll in. You feel that snap, and that is the purest demonstration of dynamic range there is. That like it's the same frequency range, but because that one peak was significantly larger, it was heard as a different element on the stuff, and that's just a cool example of it. This track is very lightly mixed. Like the push on it isn't super hard, and that's enabling it to have a lot of fun in it. Honestly, like a lot of the mixing and mastering tips I give the stuff is mostly in service to making it as loud as possible. And with that in mind, the idea that all of the little things that you do are going to be magnified to quite high levels, and that when that happens, you have to kind of mitigate them a bit. But if you're not going to do that, you don't have to mitigate them at all. And you can actually have them as part of what's happening, and it can be neat. And this track is a good example of it being neat. So, good job, Wodo. W0D0. Anyway, up next we have, it says Duat Construct, and I really want to know if that was supposed to be dual construct. But we'll find out, but it's by Absenxia. Oh, it has an X in it, and that could be a lot of different stuff. Whew, this looks a little bit more spicy. Let's see what this is like. Wow, that was a lot. Um, that was super duper cool. Like I loved all of the tones in here, everything about this, all the timing, everything. I have no actual real complaints. I do have me complaints though. One of them is that the high frequency presses just got to be too much after a while. It's like it's the main feature of every sound is how ringy and metally and screamy it is, and it adds up. It's adding up to being just too much, and you're just so close, and you're paid so close attention to the high stuff and the rolling off on the higher frequencies, and respect to the cleanness of the low frequencies, and like how loud and like where the presence kind of range is. Like the tightness is real, which is why I am not really classifying my complaints as real complaints, because you just did everything so good. And the sounds themselves and the depth and the detail, it's just this is just looking at work, and I am digging it. I'm digging it a lot. Like I dug the texture all the way through this. It felt like if Aphex Twin did a track that was like cut by Feed Me. It's that, like, I dug it. There's not a whole lot more to say about this. I could do, okay, so this is a really good example of like how you can do kind of whatever you want as long as your main elements pay attention to your loudest things, which in this track, quite thankfully, are the kick and the snare. Despite how loud and present the rest of the stuff is, the kick and the snare elements are the loudest element, and except for a few times when they get challenged a little bit by slightly higher frequency percussion. Those were some fun moments too. And that was like that's an excellently used piece of sound design that I don't personally excuse me, wow, I don't personally do too much, and it's not really for any good reason. I just don't. That's when you involve like percussive synthesis in a way that sounds like kind of close enough to the sound design that it gets kind of muddy in a way. None of that was it, but that was just so cool, wasn't it? I like this track a lot. If that wasn't clear. Oh, also a big fan of this in the beginning. That thing that I'm pretty. Is that one of those harmonic or add 3 multiple tables that you just scrape through like on that effect? Because that's like a neat little like almost quantized like brass instrument expression, but still like right. I guess you could do that with frequency shifting too. Like there's a couple ways you could think too. Here's one of the ones I meant. Woo! So when you hear something like this, it's tough to pull it apart and kind of imagine, like, because you hear it and those little percussive elements get involved in there in such a way that like it makes it feel related to what's an oscillation. Like there's percussion and then there's oscillation, and the layering of them is choice. Like in terms of how that worked, and like it's involved. And I like it a lot, and a couple other elements. It basically, wow, it seemed like it's the kick just kind of high passed and played real fast and just muddled. The processing and like the stretching on all the stuff went just far enough, you know. Like the ending, like this is a good smear on stuff, right? And like this all the way that the sharpnesses were interacted with, and plus. The pre-game was also good on this track, the like hit before hits kind of experience. That's also mostly work. Like it's a sign of very intense labor and attention paid to things. So excellent work. Good job. Moving on to the next track, we have Shihotori with Endless Voyage V1. Let's see what we have. Let's see that I start at the beginning. See that I don't screw that up. Like, here I am. There it is. Hit stop. Now we're at the beginning. Cool. that's a pretty ballsy ending. Wow. Because, wow, the rest of this track was just so majestic. Holy crap. Like, it has movements, you guys. Like, this is great. Oh my gosh. I have so many things to talk about the mix and instrument choice and that kind of thing, but hey, just can't believe how deep of like the writing went in this. It really took you on a seemingly endless voyage, but it wasn't really bad that it was that long. I liked almost everything about like the musical choices. They were hammy. Oh boy, this was some colored ham, let me tell you. Like this would have made you like the king of Sonic music in the 90s if you were around and you did this. Like in a MIDI or version of this. The music alone is wonderful. Like that's really what I'm trying to get at here, because the sound design was also kind of cool. I liked the musical, the voice merging with the digital stuff versus the digital not digital stuff. Like I'm assuming this is shreddage, and it's a pretty good use of it. The only bummer is for me is that your bass guitar doesn't really match up with your guitar. And you're choosing to do a hard thing here with the materials you're attempting to merge. And it's interesting that this was a track that followed up the previous track, because the previous track had like a matured expression of depth in the engineering and enough in timing, and not so much in like a musicality. It was more of a palette changing experience than a musical one. And this one was sort of the exact opposite. This is like the music is everything. And this could be ridiculous. Like I got major Dream Theater vibes listening to this for a while. And all it would take is some pretty good, like your instrument choice is pretty much spot on. And like they're not bad. It's just that they don't have the extra level of detail to push the polish forward enough to make it feel like the thing you're trying to make it feel like, I imagine. Like in the drums, for example, here's a good moment. Like other things happen with the drums later that make their fakeness a little more obvious than they need to be, but it's moments like this where there's not enough. Like there's a lot happening up here, but this doesn't have the air that seems like it's in enough of this to compete with it. And so like it's not even all that much, because like the sources are fine. Like these samples are okay. They could be addressed a little more with like when they do things like double rolls and that kind of thing. Like double them up a bit differently with things like velocity and phase change to make them feel a little bit different from each other. Not necessarily more real, just different. And like that would go a long way. But like the bass, I mentioned the bass guitar too. Like that, like it. My typical process for a metal bass guitar is to do whatever the regular guitar is doing on the like twang section of the bass guitar. The kind of like, oh, where's my EQ? Here it is. Like the up here section of the harmonics on the bass guitar. Basically put a real hard high pass, low pass here. And then you're going to have to gain it real high because it's not a lot of power. And then run that through whatever the guitar distortion chain is. And it'll sound like a mess. But then you high pass and low pass that signal after the fact. And you blend that in with the clean signal that has the right low end. You compress that all together. You high pass it a bit because the sub presence on metal isn't special. It's not a lot because they make room for all these kicks. The kick minefield, a friend of mine said once. This kind of thing, like that's sort of why they make it like that. But the benefit of doing it is that we still get the low note experience, and this is also important that your bass line it seems like it's in the right place, but it's one octave lower than your lowest guitar line, so that when they play together, you get like the rumble of the bass, which is mostly that kind of like what I call the refrigerator sound, because it sounds like a bunch of metal stuff like ricketing and racketing against each other because you're playing low notes. Like I don't know actually how low this doesn't look that low, but like I'm playing pretty low notes, so that's what it sounds like. And mixing wise, you're really close. Like I'm hesitant. I'm guessing that this is there's some amount of mastering engaged, but I would believe it if you told me that this was a pre-master. And if it was a pre-master, this could actually get taken someplace further. So like if this was a pre-master and this is like this, I could see a way. I could see you getting to make this feel like real and nice. And I say that like it doesn't already. Like it's really kind of amazing how well the music makes use of the elements and the sounds, because like I could use these same sounds and not make a track that sounds as good, obviously. But that's sort of the point I'm making, is that like even weirdo, not necessarily up to stuff could sound ridiculous if you've got like magical vision for music. And this track really has that. Like it knew where it was going. It knew how to say what it wanted to say. When there were some serious switches, like it wasn't just like the theme over and over again. There were moments. This really had me doing like thinking of like Rhapsody of Fire songs. And like I mentioned Dream Theater and that kind of thing. But like this is serious songwriting and it's dope. Like, good to hell job. Moving on, we have the Hermit Pixel with Abyssal Cave. Alrighty, let's see what this is like. Alright, my hand at the beginning. Still making sure. This is like the day 9 version, not ever having the audio right. I'm not ever, okay. Here we go. Good dying seamless. Or good old marimbas is what I tried to say before my throat attempted to mutiny. Yeah, I like the texture of the main bass on this. Like, I also like how the modulation of it played around with time. I like playing around with time. I like things that are slightly off. It really is something that's super basic that makes a thing feel more real. It's essentially audio shaky cam. And it does the same thing. It makes it, because it wasn't completely gridded, it makes it feel like it's not a bunch of brickwork. That's actually this thing that's moving. It has to be controlled and corralled. It's pretty like that, right? Sounds like some Bokadex area a little bit, right? That's pretty nice. I dig the work. I like the sort of general menu vibe of this thing. Like I also like how it is kind of just like an expression of it. Like not everything needs to be a whole double drop super melody like full version DJ intro thing. It can be just a fun like here's a beat with a thing and a bass. It sounds cool. And then I move on. Like that can be fine. That's fine too. And this is fine. And look at that. Like I would have no problem stuffing this kind of thing into a playlist, and that would serve its purpose. And it's not as though it is less for being less, like in length. That's not how that works functionally. I mean, I guess it is how it works functionally, but not how it works figuratively. Yeah. Okay. Dope track was dope. Good job, Senor Pixel Hermit. Up next, we have Easy by Aeixo. Aeixo. More X's and vowels. Wow. Look at this baseball bat. Woo. All right. Here comes this. That was an interesting length and order of things. This was once I don't very often hear this version of things where I feel like a thing actually needs more of itself. Like these had sections that could have been that kind of full treatment, and I kind of sort of petered out a bit there. Did I detect some harmony sampling? in there. I can see it a lot more than I can hear that, like that kind of off kilter phase cancellation. But also this actually is a good illustration of the biggest complaint I have with this track is that it doesn't always have the greatest attention paid to how high the highs should be. The highs are pretty huge most of the time, and like a bit. It's true that like the mids and lows are backing it up with how louder they are too, but like to get these to be appreciably loud, this is too loud is what ends up happening. So my recommendation would be to come down on the highs just a little bit, like not much. The rest of this is pretty great. I dug it when the guitar came in. Like this, I like this kind of crunched up guitar that doesn't really sound like it's designed to try and blend genres. Like, or even is it? Where did you show up? Like that's not even, if this were a metal song, that wouldn't be considered a great guitar tone, and but it serves the purpose of getting the guitar tone like involved in something like this. It's just a way of doing it. It's pretty dog bloody, gotta say. And I liked also the kind of the breakbeat aspirations this track had. There were a couple of moments that worked really well, and like a couple of them that didn't. The sound palette of these kick and snares, like it's strange to hear this beat not with a realistic sounding drum kit. I think I really have finally broken down to why I don't like modern breakbeat, and that might be just a personal thing. Like I'm used to breakbeat as having been a direct source from funk, of being literally the break beat that's played during when all the players are breaking, except for the drummers. So you get the beat by itself, and it's the thing that gets sampled that gets turned into hip hop, and that's how we get hip hop and that kind of deal. And that's what break beats in this genre generally were. It was those sorts of cut up loops that had that feel, the funk feel of a real drum kit most of the time. Even in the 90s when stuff got real 808y, that like the intention was still to feel like a kit most of the time. And at times that it wasn't like that, like there's definitely I think the genre is called electro funk, that is that beat, but with like straight up electronic drums. And it's the type of hip hop that I don't really like much. And it's not really new, so I can't really call that modern, and I can't really call the modern breakbeat that stems from it as being any kind of travesty or bad, because it's directly influenced by it. Maybe it's just a palette of being a drum and bass kit or a dubstep kit done in a way that's not really made for it. And but it trips me up because it's not quite like I could kind of imagine a drummer playing that, because it does sound a little pendulum-y, right? Like it sounds kind of like that, but even that was like pendulum themselves. They were like their drummer KJ Saka, when he was KJ, in the band, he was corralled hard, like kept in the range, and the range was that beat that was the thing. And there were fills and stuff every so often, but when they would play out live, was that him that played live with them? They would have drummers live, but point is that they would do things like fills and stuff, and it not because of timing or the fill itself, it would just sound unnatural for a kick or a snare with that much power to be played that fast, and it just felt odd. And it's because it was in the one, like outside of that kick and snare, like da 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 experience. It just like at least to me, I might just be explaining the mechanics of my own taste. So like take everything I just said with a huge grain of salt, like a big old piece of rock. Just you know what I mean? Like, because radness is not absolute. Anyway, good job with easy here. Aeixo. Up next, we have Axid. Wow, another A and an X name. But Space Demon is the name of the song. And look at it, Space Demon-y. Look at that. All right. Because it said the word, and now my brain associated it and immediately found a pattern. Isn't the human brain some stuff? All right. Here comes this.
Voyage, love, ugly, corrupt, destruction. These words define your whole life. Come with me, I will take you to a better place. People say hell looks ugly. It's a nightmare for some people. Idiots don't know how beautiful hell looks. Come join me.
What was it? That the dubbest dub. That was pretty swell. Was this sounded like one of those springs, like a splinky. Yeah, a slinky. I almost just said splinky again. Slinky that like you whack and you get like that kind of sound. And you loop it to get the web. This is great. I would this is pure like Adult Swim fodder. Like I would hear this coming up and it would be part of it. It would show in the middle. Like it would fit because that's what that in this. Is pretty well perfect. Like nothing. I have nothing to say about this. Like the style, the beauty of this particular style of dubstep is that it's really easy to get to full baton loudness here because all you gotta do is just pull out your fire to sub. It's about how well you can craft the hole in the sub so that it comes up in a way that sounds good. And for the most part, that could even just be not to be on, like, and time it right and play things, move on, and like, it's just like much like I was talking about in Mr. Super Melodic Man's track, "Endless Voyage" by Shihotori. I'm looking at it right now, and I still have to like pronounce it. If the things are utilized to a degree, it doesn't matter how weird and random they are. And this degree, like this track, like what's fun is that there's this high frequency, like bit crushed thing going on up here. I'm pretty sure it's probably the sub or something, but it fits exactly above where this guy fits. So it's not even about what this is or even what this is or what the lasery thing is. It's that they fit in the range that they exist in. And that is what makes it all work. And it doesn't matter that individually these are all really weird sounds. It does matter in the sense that this genre is the whole point is to bring together a lot of really weird sounds. But from like a quality and mixing standpoint, like you could have just as hard a time taking and turning amazing samples that individually all sound crisp and perfect and arranging something that sounds this good. But you would also, like, as you would having like just some random samples that have no bar of quality, like how well you could turn that into a thing, like will govern the thing's quality. And this was done a good. That was a statement. I hope it made sense. Wow, good job me. Yeah. Ultimate point, good job Axid with Space Demon. That sounded like a space demon. For damn sure. And look, it's like shooting lasers off into space. Pew 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 pew. Full on pew pew pew. Okay. And to round out today's list O tracks, we have Ezenelex with Cold Fusion. That's pretty hot for Cold Fusion. We know it's about it's not that hot. Really, it's Cold Fusion. Fusion. It's very hot. All right. Or is it? I don't know. I'm not actually totally clear on what Cold Fusion is. Let's be real. Okay. Here we go. like this a lot. Like I've always liked this particular style of. I call it electro, but frankly, when I keep trying to find it, I don't really find it under electro. So I don't know what. I guess EDM is what this is now. But if I'm not mistaken, this was just a lot of Harbor and a bunch of Harbor resampling. And I thought I heard some of those. You actually made pretty good use of some pretty nasty Harbor artifacts I usually try to get rid of, but like you actually really used it good. Like you didn't shy away from it. And it made actually a pretty nice little palette for playing some of that some of these dudes. Unless you actually were just turning the mix way down on the volume, the scale, that scale knob, the gain scale knob. Or is that really high? The one that makes it like kind of do that. Yeah, that's kind of what that looks like. Maybe that's what that was. But that's also what happens when you go kind of hard on the sharpness and it gets kind of watery. So though. One thing I never really did when I did a lot of hardware sampling was include a lot of like, I don't know, a layer of noise in the actual process. The only reason I bring it up is because this track has a pretty hard cut up there, and it sounds, especially in combination with these particular kinds of sounds, it sounds kind of like your track got MP3'd to death. And it didn't need to be. It could be chirpier. Yes, when it's choppier and sharper, and it's chirpier. That's wow. That's like snarp, chirp. Nice. It means something completely different. All right then. The excellent mix, good music, good pacing, like good flow on things. I like the kind of the pre-transients on the kick. I liked a lot of the stuff about this track. So good job. Ezenelex. Alrighty then. If you guys have any questions about this, please let me know. Oh, if you'd like to have one of your tracks featured in these videos, keep meaning to say this at the beginning of these videos. Go on over to the Discord channel, linked in the description, and there's a channel for it complete with instructions and stuff, and with mods who will help you if you need the help to make sure that your submission actually gets submitted. Yes. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And as usual, have a nice day. Yes.